everyone, I'm going to tell you a story. This is Bob. And I think we can all agree that Bob looks like he has had quite a rough life. He didn't always look like this. He was a healthy child, an athletic teenager, and a sturdy and strapping young man. It really all started about 6 months ago when he was asked how he could show people what public health was. He decided the best way to do this would be to show people the consequences of a life without public health. As a committed public health champion, he committed to 6 months of this life. And now, poor Bob looks like this. Let's take a look at his day to see what's different. Bob doesn't worry about how much sleep he's getting, so he's taken to staying up quite late watching TV. It makes for a sleepy morning when he wakes up for work at 6 a.m., and he ignores nutrition guidelines and healthy eating as he indulges in a massive bowl of Fruit Loops. He now gets his water from a puddle in the backyard in order to avoid all sanitation and treatment processes like chlorination and fluoridation. Like I said, he's quite committed. On days when there are no puddles, well, he grabs himself a soda. He typically moves slowly in the morning due to his sleepiness, but luckily he can save time by not brushing his teeth and flying out the door after breakfast. Unfortunately for Bob, he took down the handrail on his front porch steps, and after flying out of the door, he proceeds to fly off the front porch, 1 story up. How many of you in the audience have taken time to appreciate your handrails? I'm guessing not too many. Bob stands up and limps across his lawn to his car. His grass has been looking especially green these past 6 months, as he has completely overdosed his grass on biocides. You'd be hard-pressed to find even the most resourceful and resilient of microbes. As he walks, the grass rubs up on his legs, and he knows the remainder of his day is going to be wrought with itchy contact dermatitis. Poor Bob. Upon starting his car, he peers back to ensure that a huge puff of black exhaust has exploded out of the rear. He removed all his filters on his engine, and he sees his neighbor's children walking to school and feels a stab of guilt as he knows they're inhaling some contaminated air. But he reminds himself that he's a committed public health professional and goes on about his drive. 6 months ago, when Bob began this endeavor, he had all the signage removed on the roads involved in his commute to work. This involved lane dividers, street signs, stoplights, crosswalks, you name it. You can all imagine the disastrous events that these actions would elicit. As Bob drives to work, he is yet again reminded how much he has come to rely on what he now considers beautiful stripes of gold that divide the road, how he longs for those. Suddenly, from behind, a fierce-looking driver speeds by him, and he is thrust to the side of the road, where another car, driven by a crazed-looking woman who is pulling up on a side street and does not stop because there are no street signs, smashes into Bob's car and races along on her way. Bob, who was not wearing a seatbelt, falls out of his car, deflated and defeated. He taxis the rest of his way to work, where he is greeted by an ill coworker who sneezes with the strength of 1,000 winds and then proceeds to excitedly shake Bob's hand. Bob, who, let me remind you, is committed to his endeavor, knows in a world without public health, there is no reason to avoid his colleagues' germs. He shudders as he rubs his eyes and sighs, knowing there is an unpleasant gripe in his near future, and he sadly walks into work to start his day. And that is just Bob's morning without public health. I told this silly story to you all today, not to oversimplify the situation, but because I wanted to remind everyone that public health is what keeps us from turning into Bob. When people think of public health, they think of the huge victories, like vaccines, water chlorination, seatbelt, maybe water fluoridation. But public health is really the day-to-day victories that keep us healthy, the street signs, the food safety, the bike helmets. It's these victories that need to be recognized and celebrated, and it's these everyday victories that are the essence of what public health really is. Thank you.